All right, welcome back to the Mike and George Show. And on today's episode, we have some MLB postseason stuff to recap. Obviously, the wildcard round has finished. We are now 2 games into the Divisional Series, so George and I will recap that on today's episode. We also have some college football teams to talk about. Some big games last week, George, in college football, specifically in the Sunshine State. We'll get to those games for sure. And then a couple huge upsets in NFL. I mean, what a crazy week in the NFL. We had Broncos over Eagles, Bills drop a home game to the Pats, Jaguars get their biggest win in years. So some upsets on the NFL side that we'll talk about as well on this podcast. We got to talk with the baseball, though, George. I mean, we recapped it, or I guess we previewed the playoffs last week on last week's episode. Now we'll kind of just recap what's going on.
Yep.
You're looking pretty good right now. I think you only have one series wrong. It was that Tigers series, that Tigers-Guards series, where you initially liked the Tigers. This was your team all year long.
Yeah.
You went away from them, and that's the only. I think that's the only one you got wrong right now, right? You got Boston, or you got New York over Boston, right?
Yeah.
Cubs,
So far so good. I mean, the home teams, you kind of expect them to do a little better, and then the Tigers, they kind of figured out the bats when they needed to, like you said there. I kind of kicking myself saying that I wish I had stuck with my prediction because I do love that roster. Kerry Carpenter, Dylan Dingler, even like those depth guys are so fun. A couple clutch hits. So, but yeah, so far been a really good playoff, and the Tigers continue. They have a great series brewing with the Mariners right now. Obviously, we'll get into that, but yeah, I mean that first one, Tigers Guardians. It was kind of expected that Guardians offense had struggled pretty much all year. And when it mattered most, Scooble was great, and They won that first one, and I kind of said, if they win that first one, I don't feel great about Cleveland coming back and winning 2 in a row. And that's exactly what happened. So yeah, credit to Detroit. I mean, I know that you were all over it there, so credit to you for getting that one.
Yeah, I think I said that if Detroit wins the first game, I did think it would go 3. It did go the distance. These teams have been very evenly matched. Obviously, Detroit got out to the huge lead in the regular season, but down the stretch they came, it was very even. I know Cleveland had the home field advantage, but it just felt like if the Tigers could get the big hit, all series long, the Tigers had guys in scoring position. They just couldn't get that big hit with runners in scoring position until that game 3 where they had a huge inning. I believe it was Jahmai Jones or Dylan Dingler got it started with the home run, the go-ahead home run. And then they finally were starting to get the hits with runners on.
Rally.
Yeah, the rally after that, it was like an avalanche. So the Tigers were able to get out that series with the win. The other one, Boston, New York, I took Boston because of Crochet. I said, okay, they'll win game 1 because Crochet's on the mound. But they had nobody left for game 3. You can kind of see Boston in game 3. It was like we're relying on a rookie here, Connerly, early, and he pitched well. Unfortunately, the Red Sox scored no runs in game 3. So if you can't score, you can't. And credit to the Yankees. Schlittler did an outstanding job in game 3 of shutting them down. Ultimately, the Yankees advanced to face Toronto. So you were all over there. Rodon with his back against the wall. I thought he would have some pressure there, and he was able to get out of some frisky innings. I felt like the Red Sox were just waiting to blow that game open in game 2. They made some errors in the outfield, Duran, and ultimately the Yankees were able to prevail in a really close series. So yeah, what were your thoughts on that series? Obviously, we have the Yankees and Jays going on right now as we speak. So the Yankees are down 2-0 as we're recording this, but they were able to beat the Red Sox.
Yeah, no, I was pretty impressed by the Yankees. They showed a lot of fight. Obviously, Schlittler, that was unbelievable. His stuff,
legendary.
He had the velo going all night through the 8th inning. He was bringing it. And when you've got the velo going and you're throwing it for strikes, the off-speed pitches are just that much more devastating. So credit to them there. I mean, it kind of felt like the Red Sox were like a bat short, maybe an arm short. And
Roman Anthony,
Rafi Devers, talk about that trade they made where he wasn't very happy. So, it kind of felt like they were a couple guys short against New York and not getting a single home game. Obviously, people don't love that kind of wild card 3-game set all in one stadium. But I mean, It is what it is, right? You got it. That's why you play the regular season. So, but yeah, credit to the Yankees for getting that done. But I mean, the story kind of moves on immediately to the Jays just blasting them for 2 games right away. I'm sure. Yeah, I see you smiling over there. That's great. But yeah, I mean, the Yankees are a good team. It's a good lineup, but that rotation is a little bit thin. And you're kind of seeing the Jays take advantage of it. Vladdy's playing awesome right now. He just looks like he's grooving. He looks like the ball is the size of who even knows what a beach ball
right now. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean the Yankees played great in the wild card, but they're not great right now. That's for sure.
Well, we talked about it on the podcast last week. Remember, the Yankees are kind of built. They're a heavy strikeout team. If they strike you out, they're going to win games. If they hit home runs, they're going to win games. They're very home run reliant. Their pitchers are they're strikeout pitchers. But what the Jays do, and this is why I kind of actually wanted the Yankees. I mean, I was scared either way because these teams, they know us, and it's always scary when you face a divisional opponent in the divisional series who's coming off a momentum-building wildcard win. I was just saying that the Yankees are kind of the perfect style for us because they rely on striking you out. We don't strike out. The Jays just don't strike out. They put the ball in play. They put pressure on your defense, and the Yankees have had defensive problems all year. You saw Judge make an error in the outfield yesterday where the ball just went right to his glove. And what could have been a single or double goes into a triple for Varsho. and then ultimately we hit the sac fly that brings him in, and then Clement hits a homer to bring him in. So we're getting guys over to third, and then we're scoring them. It's just kind of like it's very fundamental baseball, small ball baseball, which the Yankees don't really do very well. They're very home run reliant. I don't want to count my chickens before they hatch because I think the series is far from over. I am worried that if we don't get it done tonight, we do have Shane Bieber on the mound tonight, former Cy Young. But if we don't get it done tonight, we don't really have anyone for Game 4. It's very similar to Boston Game 3 against the Yankees in that wild card. They were kind of like running out of pitchers. It's a bullpen day for us, Game 4, if it does get to a Game 4. Like if we don't win this series tonight, we're typing this before Game 3 tonight in the Bronx. I mean, it could very easily get back to Toronto in Game 5, and then you never know. But right now, through 2 games, it's been utter domination. We've just kind of toyed with them. 23 runs through 2 games, and we've been getting to their bullpen. I was worried that Fried against our rookie Trey Savage. By the way, Trey Savage, I mean, already stamped him in.
He's a savage.
He is a savage. Rookie out of East Carolina. He's already stamped in Blue Jays playoff history with that performance, going 5 1/3 of no hit against the Yankees lineup, who's number 1 in almost every offensive category. To hold them to 0 hits, 11 Ks, and just 1 walk. I mean, that's stuff of legends right there. That's no one. Even the biggest Blue Jays fans would have never expected him to do that against that vaunted lineup with Judge and Stanton and Bellinger. I mean, there's like 5 former MVPs in that lineup. He just kind of toyed with them all game long. And then with Fried, we were able to get to the bullpen in that 4th inning. And the Yankees bullpen has been up and down. That's kind of the story of their season right now. It's like Luke Weaver, Warren, Tim Hill. It's like those guys have been very up and down, and the Jays were able to get to that bullpen early, tax them a little bit. So right now, just perfect execution for the Jays through 2 games. The Yankees are far from out of it, of course. But right now, it's looking like the Jays are on fire.
Yeah, I mean, with you Savage, you touched on it right there. It is so fun to have a guy that obviously he was a highly touted guy coming out of college, and he's only made 3 regular season starts in his career, so that you don't have a ton of tape on him. You don't have a lot of guys who have seen his pitch shape and seen what he likes to do and when he's out there, and you could kind of see it. 5 1/3 no hit inning. He was dominant against a good Yankees lineup. I mean, and the Yankees, it just kind of feels like, I'm sure we'll talk about it in a second here in the Philly-Dodgers series, but sometimes you see a team wait. We talk about that little break that the Blue Jays got, and they might come out flat. It's none of that from Toronto so far. They've been great. They've been jumping all over them. Offense has been all over the place, and the pitching, I mean, it's been great. It hasn't really needed to be. I mean, they've been just scoring their way through, and it's been super comfortable, right? So yeah, I mean, the Jays look great, and hopefully they continue the momentum up here.
Yeah, I mean, the Yankees just couldn't hit a splitter. I mean, Trey Savage was just spamming that splitter. They saw a lot of Gosman splitter in Game 1, but then Trey Savage splitter. Talking about the north-south, it just dips and it disappears. And they were having a problem hitting that all game long. But yeah, we can shift to the Seattle-Detroit series, which is going on right now. We talked about it a little bit. It's 1-1 right now. Interestingly enough, Detroit won Game 1 on a bullpen game. They were kind of just – it went to, I believe, 11 innings, and they were able to kind of small ball their way into a win there. Then Game 2, Skubal starts. It's like, okay, Detroit can get greedy here and steal 2 games in Seattle. And then obviously that was the Jorge Polanco game. He had huge home runs, huge home run and huge hit to kind of get. I believe Detroit actually tied the game with Kerry Carpenter late in that game, but then Seattle was able to snatch it back with Julio Rodriguez and Cal Raleigh with that big inning there in the 7th or 8th, I believe it was. So yeah, Seattle got the split there, or Detroit got the split in Seattle. They're heading back home to Detroit now. I believe that game starts at 4:30. This afternoon. I think it got delayed.
I got delayed a little bit.
But it got delayed from the weather, inclement weather in Detroit. But who do we like in this series? I know you said Cleveland and Seattle, but I think you felt comfortable with Seattle against Cleveland more so than Detroit. I think you acknowledge. Yeah, you acknowledge if Detroit wins this series, that's a tough series for Seattle. You got to face Skubal probably twice if it goes the distance. They were able to get him the first time at home. Seattle, that is. They were able to split the series at home. But if it does get back to Game 5 for Seattle, they have to face Skubal again. It's like, can you really do that? Can you trust that you can beat Skubal again? So, if you're Seattle, maybe you want to just take both games in Detroit here and not even have a Game 5 winner take all with Skubal on the mound for Detroit. But what are your thoughts on that series so far through 2 games?
Yeah, I mean,
2 great games.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is kind of the only series so far that's been competitive. I mean, all the other ones are 2-0, and it looks like it's kind of almost decided. But Tigers Mariners, this feels like a great series so far. And yeah, it's hard to really pick either way here. Obviously, I have the Mariners winning this. That was against Cleveland in the bracket, which you feel a little more comfortable in. But I think, and I hate to falter, but it kind of feels like Detroit's waking up at the right time.
Yeah,
and the fact they didn't even win with Skubal, right? Like that felt like you said the game that they were going to win was going to be Game 2, and they win Game 1. So they're kind of winning in ways that they haven't over the last month of the season, really. And so it's almost like they're saving some of their magic for October here, and they're playing some really good baseball at the right time, which is what you want to see out of a team that is trying to make a sneaky little run in the wild card. So I mean, I still love the Mariners lineup. I still love their rotation. Yeah. I'm not going to say that they're not the same team they were a week ago, but the way the Tigers are playing, I'm really impressed. And it's hard to really pick either way here. I mean, this game tonight is huge deciding. Game 3, obviously, 2-1 is an insane lead in the LDS. So I don't really feel comfortable on it. But with Detroit getting 2 games at home here, I think I lean them a little more, especially with having kind of the way they've won the games, and the offense waking up. And I don't want to throw rumors around, but people are talking about juice balls kind of coming into this playoff run. We saw a couple that swing. I can't remember who it was for the Jays. Was it
Ernie Clement?
Was it Clement who kind of just reached out and just popped one over the left field fence? And I was like, oh my goodness, I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's the baseball. I don't know if it's not very hot in October. So I'm not really sure what it is, but the balls are flying a little bit here. And I think that favors the Tigers. I think so. It's going to be a good series. This is one that I expect to go all 5 games. And if they get Skubal back on for game 5, it's hard to pick against that guy. So I think I lean Tigers given those circumstances, but never count the Mariners out. The way they're playing, they're always kind of have some magical kind of feeling.
Magic, yeah.
Exactly. So
it feels like a magical team this year. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, it's hard to pick, but I think if it goes 5, I might go Tigers.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing there. It feels like the Tigers have woken up a little bit. You mentioned it, like they look more like they did before the All-Star break, which they were the number 1 team in the American League for the entire first half of the season until recently where they kind of faltered. It looks like those bats are getting back to what they were looking like, and obviously you're getting the pitching help where they're not allowing many runs. The bullpen's been much better. Obviously Seattle's bullpen's really good too. Munoz at the back end there, they've been locked down as well. It just comes down to who can get the big hit. And this year, it feels like this series has been super competitive. It comes down to one at bat, one pitch, one hit
late
with
game dramatics, all kinds
of late game drama. It's a call here, a decision to steal a base here, a base hit in the. It's basically all that. It's playoff baseball at its finest. This series has been incredible. So it's weird if it gets back to game 5, Seattle would have an edge at home because that home crowd can kind of just carry them past an at bat or a pitch. But obviously you have Skubal. It's almost like last year when the Guardians and Tigers played in that dramatic 5-game set, and Skubal was back on the mound for that game 5, and he had it going through 6 innings against Cleveland. And then eventually that big hit, I believe it was David Fry or Austin Hedges, or I think it was somebody like that who just finally got the big hit off of Skubal, and Cleveland was able to win that series last year and advance to the championship series. So Seattle, I would not count them out at home if they're able to get it back to Seattle for a game 5. But I think if you ask Mariners fans, they want to end this thing, win both games in Detroit, and not even have to deal with a game 5 Skubal. So yeah, I think I'd still lean Seattle because I think I just trust them to win 2 out of 3, even if they have to face Skubal again. I just kind of feel like. And now here's another thing: no Brian Wu in the series for Seattle. I think we picked this. We assumed he would be on the roster. It's been obviously George Kirby, it's been Luis Castillo, and then today it's gonna be Logan Gilbert for Seattle. So they still have 3 awesome arms, but obviously you'd like to have Brian Wu in there.
That's your guy,
Then you'd have like a serious pitching advantage for 4 of the 5. But now obviously game 5 you're looming with Skubal in the back pocket there for Detroit. So that's like the big trump card here for the Tigers that they have waiting in the wings. But yeah, I think I'm still going to lean Mariners, but it's very, very close. It can go either way. I would not be shocked if the Tigers were able to take it. But yeah, so shifting over to the NL side, you were right about the Cubs. I think it was weird. The Cubs won game 1, I believe, and come from behind. I think the Padres.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, I think so. It was a low scoring. I think it was just kind of one of those like 4-3 maybe.
And then obviously game 2, the Padres bullpen just shut everything down. I don't think the Cubs even had any runners.
Yeah, Mason Miller probably threw the best pitch of all time.
Oh my gosh, 104 painted. I mean, it was just like, what can you do? What can you do with that? And so the Cubs really didn't have many opportunities to score in the game 2, but then game 3, it was a lot of opportunities to score for the Cubs. They had, I think, bases loaded off Yu Darvish in like the 2nd or 3rd inning, so they were getting a ton of opportunities. I think the Padres were honestly lucky to even be in that game late. And then obviously, I think it was 3-0 or something like that. I think they were within 3 runs, within 2 runs. And then obviously the 9th inning comes and that call to Xander Bogaerts, which looked low. It looked like it was ball 4. Obviously that'll be ABS next year when they have the balls and strikes that you get to challenge it next year. That might be that might come into fruition next year. But either way, I mean, you got to give credit to the Cubs bullpen. And that was like the one aspect of the this team we talked about all year long with the Cubs. Like, okay, what's their bullpen going to be like in October when they're facing these Manny Machados and Fernando Tatis and the Jackson Merrills and the Xander Bogaerts? Well, they were really good in this series. I mean, Tatis didn't really have a huge series here in Wrigley Field. He wasn't really hitting the ball much. Machado had that big moment in game 2 with the homer. Merrill had a few nice moments as well, but for the most part, the Cubs, they kind of shut down the Padres bats, and the Padres bats who kind of had been struggling a little bit. We were like, okay, will they find it in this series in Wrigley, kind of a hitter's ballpark, and they really weren't able to do it. So credit to the Cubs for winning that. Also, that was another awesome series. 3 games, 3 pretty competitive games, and the Cubs were able to get. Now, obviously, they're down 2-0 to the Brewers right now. So what are your overall thoughts on that kind of quadrant of Cubs, Padres, and now Brewers?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, the first thing you hate to see a series kind of end with the umpire kind of getting involved there.
Yeah,
You want it to be kind of a clean ending, but I mean, it is what it is. It's just kind of the nature of the game, and
right.
obviously, that's why we're gonna kind of change towards some of the ABS stuff next year.
Sure.
But yeah, I thought the Cubs were great. Like you said, I mean, 13 hits from the offense in Game 3 really kind of shut down Tatis and Arias. You didn't really hear their names very much. Like you said, Machado and Jackson Merrill, I think, had a pretty good series, but it really starts with Tatis. That's your guy. And if he's not kind of at the top of his game, sometimes your lineup kind of follows, and you kind of saw it there. And the Cubs, that's a lineup where you don't really have one star. Kyle Tucker obviously is kind of the guy, but you saw Seiya Suzuki have a couple of really clutch hits. Pete Crow Armstrong 3 for 4 in the Game 3. Michael Busch 3 for 4 in Game 3. Dansby said, I think it was I can't remember his name at the time currently, but the Padres manager said he'd give MVP to Dansby because he plays such good defense at shortstop. Exactly. And that's super important, obviously. So, that Cubs lineup, you just kind of see a super well-rounded team that doesn't make a ton of mistakes, and plays clean baseball. And in the playoffs, that's like we kind of talked about earlier. It's making one more play than the other team and making one more pitch. And sometimes the umpire helps you a little bit, and that's kind of what we saw. But credit to them. They put themselves in a good scenario, and they played really good baseball. So credit to them. They deserve the win. And then obviously you come here to Milwaukee, and it just kind of feels like the bats don't work outside of the first inning. Exactly. And Milwaukee's they were just ready. We talked about it a second ago. Sometimes the break helps you, sometimes it hurts you. And obviously we'll talk about the Phillies in a second here. But the Brewers, it feels like the break they were ready to go. They were lashing at the gate, just ready to go hit the baseball, and that's all they've done so far. And they don't really feel, doesn't really feel like they're under any pressure. Obviously the series is going back to Chicago now, so it's going to be a good environment for the Cubbies. They kind of need these. Obviously they need these.
We know how good they are at home. Yeah, they
exactly. But I mean, right now the Brewers just look like the much better team, and it's kind of how it was during the regular season. And sometimes things shake up a little bit. Like we said, the Tigers are kind of coming back, playing better ball now, but the Brewers have just stayed strong, and they've earned it, and they're playing great. So credit to the Brewers. They've really kind of dominated so far, and they're kind of taking the Cubs out of this series. If the Cubs don't score 6 runs, it's like they don't really have a shot.
No chance.
So.
No.
I mean, the way it lies now, I'm leaning Brewers heavily and comfortably.
Yeah, you mentioned that middle infield for the Cubs just shut down the Padres. Dansby Swanson, I believe, he robbed Luis Arias 3 or 4 times. The Cubs were just outstanding defensively in that series. It's a tough task now with the Brewers, who are awesome at home. I believe they have the best record at home in baseball.
That sounds right.
And you come into there, and now they lead off the division series with Michael Busch home run, I believe. They went up 1-0 in that game 1, and then it was just curtain calls. The Brewers scored 7 runs in that bottom of the first, bottom of the second, whatever it was. So they were ready to hit. Jackson Churio, Sam Frelick, Yelich, all these guys have been itching to get, they've been itching to get to these pitches now, and they were ready. They came out swinging. And by the way, the Brewers don't even hit a ton of home runs yet. In this series, the ball is flying over the wall in Milwaukee, so they're hitting home runs in this series. So they're hitting them when it matters. So again, maybe that time off. I know for us in Vladdy, that 5 days off, he was working on getting that pitch, getting these swing
launch angle.
Launch angle. Yeah, get these pitches elevated. You want to hit home runs in October is what can carry it. Obviously, there's a difference in these things. So the Brewers probably that time off was probably beneficial to them. And obviously, you saw the Brewers in the first 2 games. That bullpen for the Brewers just locked down. The Cubs aren't scoring runs after a certain inning. I mean, after the first inning, really they're struggling to score runs. But I mean, once we talk about the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th inning, they're not even getting runners on base. The Brewers are taking them out of the series. They have, if you can't even get scoring opportunities in late innings, you have no chance of winning the series against the Brewers. That's their thing. If they get to their bullpen, and obviously you got outstanding production out of Freddie Peralta in game 1. They have the pitching, and then you saw the Miz yesterday. Gives up that 3-run bomb to Suzuki, but then Jacob Mizorowski, Mizorowski just settled in. Looked like cool, calm, collected. He was ho humming through these. I mean, it was no stress really after that first inning for the Brewers. So an electric atmosphere for them. But now the series shifts to Wrigley Field, and the Cubs are more than capable enough to win both games there in Chicago and get this thing back to Milwaukee. But winning in Milwaukee is going to be the big task there, because the Brewers feel like their bats just come alive at home. Obviously, their bullpen is it's been locked down. So the Cubs need to score runs. They need to worry about scoring runs at home. They were able to do it a little bit against the Padres in Game 3, finally getting opportunities on and getting guys on base, which is the big thing. But even in that Padres series, they faced a really good Padres bullpen that kind of kept them at bay in most of those games. So now you're facing another really good bullpen. So the runs have to be scored to win this series against the Brewers. You're not going to be able to win these games 2-1. The Cubs bats just simply have to come alive. If not, they're going to be going home and possibly getting swept. So the Cubs, their backs are against the wall. Not as dire. I'm picking the Brewers because obviously we see how the first 2 games go. It looks like I don't think the Brewers are going to lose 3 straight games. It's just I don't think they're too good of a team to lose 3 in a row. So I do believe the Brewers are going to take it. I had Brewers Padres, so I mean at this point my team. The Padres are out at this point, but the Cubs are in a dire situation. Not as dire as the Phillies though. The Phillies, they dropped both 2 games at home. The other 2 teams, like the Blue Jays, they held serve at home. The Brewers, they held serve at home. The Phillies not only dropped the first home game, Seattle dropped the first home game, they dropped both home games. So they, Christopher Sanchez was unbelievable in that game. Unfortunately, the Phillies bullpen blew that game in game one. Teoscar Hernandez hits the big 3-run home run off of Strahm. I believe it was Strahm. And then obviously game two, you saw, Jesus Luzardo was kind of humming. He was rolling, as was Blake Snell for the Dodgers. Ultimately came into those late innings, and the Dodgers were able to get 2 on. Situational hitting. You see Will Smith come up with a big hit. Then Shohei Ohtani follows it up with a big RBI single. And the Dodgers go out to a 4-0 lead. And then they almost blew it last night. Last night, the ninth inning was just playoff baseball at its finest. I really want to hear your thoughts about the ninth inning decision to bunt there by Rob Thompson and the Phillies. I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if I'm down personally, and I'm interested in your thoughts on this. If I'm down a run, I don't want to give away any outs. If it's a tie game at home, I'm moving the guy over and trying to walk them off. But if I'm down a run and all I can do is tie the game at home, I'm not going to give away any outs. I'm not taking the bat out of Bryson Stott's hands in that situation, because you never know. Like, you could pop up a bunt. We've seen how bad it goes. The Red Sox tried to have Cedric Rafaela do it in that deciding game too, that series clincher for Boston, and he popped it up, and the Yankees got out of the inning unscathed. So you just never know if the bunt's going to work. I'm all for playing small ball, but when you're down a run at home in the ninth inning with a leaky bullpen, we've talked about the Dodgers bullpens being a little leaky, Vesia, Trinan, and then obviously they brought in Roki Sasaki. But before they brought in Roki Sasaki, they brought in Vesia, and they bunt off of him. I just don't know if I agree with that. Giving away outs to that bullpen, I don't know if I can stomach that. And then they lose, obviously, because Freddie Freeman with the unbelievable dig to get the last out. But yeah, what were your overall thoughts in that ninth inning?
Well, yeah, I mean, the first thing, you look at the bunt, and it's a terrible bunt. If you're gonna bunt that ball, you got to bunt it down the first base line. You gotta bunt the ball well, and you bunt it right at the third baseman. Max Muncy makes a great play. So credit to Max Muncy, great tag from Betts, and then all of a sudden all of your momentum is gone, right? But yeah, I hate that as well. I think that, like you said, you're down a run. You need every out you can work with. Obviously, this is playoff baseball, and I understand small ball. It's a tie game. I agree with you there. But it's a very simple job. I think if you just tell Bryson Stott, hey, go get your foot down early and hit a ground ball to the right side. You don't have to bunt it. Just hit a ground ball to the right side or a fly ball to the right side. Just get him over to third base. It doesn't have to be a bunt. And when you bunt, you bring in a play with that brings kind of a lot of variance. Like you said, you don't hold the bat like that normally. You don't bunt 600 times a year. You get normal at bats. You swing 600 times a year. So
you're not practicing bunting. Yeah,
you're not practicing bunting not nearly as much as you are hitting ground balls to the right side. I mean, we always practice situational hitting, right? So I think if you're Bryson Stott there, obviously there's nothing you can do. I mean, you get the bunt sign, you got to get the bunt sign. But right. I think it's a bad decision, like you said. I think when you're down a run and your offense is really struggling to give free outs, especially when you're kind of in the middle of a rally, it's just absurd. And you kind of get what you deserve there. And I think there's something to be said about, obviously we talk about the bank. It's an awesome atmosphere and it's a lot of fun to play there. But you kind of notice when the Phillies get down early, they'll turn on them real fast. Mm-hmm. And those heavy cheers turn into heavy boos. You hear boos real early in Philly. And you see it in football, you see it in all the sports, and their fans are kind of like that. And I respect it because they care so much and they love their team. Right. But when you have that great environment and you go down early, you get punched in the mouth early, and your guys are booing, it kind of takes your guys out of it. And that hyper focus kind of turns into some anxiety. You start thinking about, oh shoot, we're about to lose 2 at home. Yeah. And then you decide to bunt in a clutch spot when you don't need a bunt. You just need to hit a ground ball to first base.
The right side,
So you kind of overthink the job a little bit, right? And I say all this to say, obviously, the Phillies are a great baseball team. They're missing their guy. They're missing their ace, but they pitched really well. Like you said, it's kind of uncharacteristic to them to lose this in the bullpen and to not score any runs. And, there's a couple of plays here and there. That ground ball to Trey Turner, that's a really tough play, the throw to home. It would have been great if he had made that play. It's tough. You can't really be too upset with him there. But I think the credit here has to go to the Dodgers. We talked all about how the Dodgers have a terrible bullpen, worst bullpen in the entire postseason. And they just kind of said, what bullpen? What bullpen? Well, we got Vesia, who's our lefty specialist, and we've got Trinan if we need kind of a guy who can just throw as hard as he can. But we're going to bring in Glass now. We're going to bring in Roki to close, and Roki's disgusting. He throws 119 miles an hour. He's got a splitter. He's got a sinker. He's got a slider. And so when he's not having to start and pitch for 7 innings, he's having to throw 15 pitches, his 15 best pitches, and he's been really productive. Really dangerous, right? And then you kind of see, obviously we talked about it before. This Dodgers lineup is incredible. Teoscar Hernandez is notoriously elevates in the playoffs. I think he's got like a 1,200 OPS or something right now. It's ridiculous. The defense is a separate thing, but we're not talking about defense. Right. But the Dodgers are just like, they've been great, and I picked them obviously, so this is great for me. But I didn't even expect this. I didn't think they were going to take 2 in Philly. I think you go 1-1 in Philly, and maybe you take 1-1 back home and you steal Game 5. You get a little lucky, but taking 2 in Philly, they just look dominant, and it kind of feels like they're doing whatever they want. And if their bullpen allows them to do that, and the Phillies are giving them outs in the ninth, like we talked about, that's kind of what's going to happen, right? So obviously, like the bunt, I hate that. As not just a baseball fan, I think there's something to be said about, oh, don't bunt. People hate bunt. The young guys hate bunt. But I think that's just situationally the wrong decision.
Yeah.
You can ask anyone that. But yeah, you just got to ask your guy, hey, I need you to hit a ground ball to the right side. It's not that much to ask for. Just hit a ground ball to the right side. If it gets through, awesome. You got a single. If not, you got your guy on third, 1 out. You got a bunch of chances. But when you bunt, you're really kind of taking away control from your guys. Because if you could have, like you said, you could have a bad bunt. You could have a bunt right to the third baseman, which they did have. And so, like I said earlier, you make one more play, or you give them one more play. You give them an inch. That's the difference between a win and a loss in the playoffs. And that's kind of what we're seeing out of the Phillies. They came out pretty slow. The offense not doing a ton. That's a great lineup, and they're not doing a ton. And obviously the Dodgers rotation is great, but I mean, you got to help yourself out at a certain point. It's almost like we kind of talk about quarterbacks. You got to see one go through the hoop. You got to see a couple short, easy throws to get them in motion, get them ready, get them comfortable, right? And you kind of feels like the Phillies are kind of tightening up. Their fans are kind of adding to that pressure because they're on their head. And obviously, I'm not saying it's a bad thing for fans to care, but when you start booing so fast, it kind of takes you guys out of it. We saw this a few years ago with Alec Boehm talking about he hates the city. Obviously, he doesn't feel that way. It's a little bit of a dramatic response, but I mean, I understand what he's saying. You gotta fight for your guys, even when it's 4-0. You got to be cheering, respecting your guys. So I mean, it's tough for the Phillies here, and they're gonna need some kind of miracle. But I don't see them winning 2 in LA.
Yeah. By the way, Blake Snell held them to just 1 hit, so they really weren't even getting opportunities, which is builds to the tenseness of the crowd. It's like we're not even getting opportunities to get on base and
they're getting anxious.
Start rallies, because if you get a guy on second base, the crowd's going crazy for the next guy on. Then you can start to see the momentum going, but. I do want to give credit to that. That wheel play was incredible. Max Muncy made an unbelievable throw. That's made an unbelievable tag. And you also, another reason why I hate the bunt call, just to wrap up the bunt thing, but you got to know who's on second base. Nick Castellanos is not the fastest guy in the world. It's not like you can just guarantee he's going to, you can lay a bunt down, he'll get to third base. Like, there's not a guarantee there. And Betts raced to the bag, got there way before Castellanos even, he
was out by 3 feet. Yeah. I mean,
out by 3 feet. Yeah. I mean, it was a great play by Muncy and great play it was great execution, no doubt about it. But it's also Castellanos at second base. It's not like you got a guy who's stolen 50 bags that you can just rely on to get there at third. So yeah, you have to just think, ground ball to the right side. That's going to move runner over. Heck, not sack fly, but a fly ball to the right side. Possibly can get Castellanos over maybe, but again, it's not the best guy as far as speed goes. So you could argue should Thompson have pulled and got a pinch runner in there? As the tying run. If you're going to play for the tie, then get a pinch runner in there who like for us, for the Blue Jays, if we're down a run, we're going to bring in Miles Straw. He's our fastest player.
Absolutely.
Or Jimenez or something like that. So you're going to bring in a guy like that as a pinch runner. He did that for the guy at first. I believe Schwarber drew a walk, and he took Schwarber out. And
the winning run he wanted,
and brought in the pinch runner. But that was the winning run. But ultimately, that guy got that ended up being the tying run after Castellanos got picked off at third. So then, okay, you have the lead runner there, but now who cares? He's on first base instead of second base, and now you don't have a guy in scoring position because you blew the bunt thing. So their tying run ended up being at first, and then ultimately, the last play they're parked at the corners, and Freddie Freeman makes an unbelievable dig out there, and they win game 2. So yeah, the Dodgers defense, you got to give them a lot of credit. Obviously, Teoscar Hernandez not the best glove out there in right field, but he's just an unbelievable postseason hitter. He hits the 3-run bomb in game 1. He has the first run of the game with an unbelievable slide into home plate. Teoscar, obviously for us, for the Blue Jays in 2022 in that wild card against the Mariners, he had 3 home runs in that series.
He's an elevator, man.
That 2-game wild card. Yeah, he's great in October. I mean, he just turns into a different hitter in October. So same thing with Kike Hernandez. The Dodgers just have guys who just elevate their game in the postseason, and they're not even they have 5 MVPs in the lineup. And we're talking about the 6, 7, 8 guys that are still unbelievable.
That's kind of the thing, right? You talk about you need to elevate in the postseason, and the Phillies. The credit goes to the Dodgers for playing great, but you kind of see the Phillies. I mean, Kyle Schwarber's 0 for his last 21. And he had an MVP level season up until kind of September, right? And you just kind of see him falter. And I'm not saying Kyle Schwarber isn't a great player, but those are the guys you need your core to step up. Trey, Bryce, Schwarber, obviously all former Nats. But these are guys that you need to step up in these series. And it's tough because in baseball, sometimes 162 game season could come down to 3 tough games.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is you're in those games. You have an equal opportunity, equal chance. And in that clutch moment, you kind of see a bunt and you give them a free out. And that's kind of the difference, like we said. So didn't love it, but credit to the Dodgers and credit to Dave Roberts for the way he's managed it. He's been great. He's done a great job.
It feels like a lot like that Diamondback series a couple years ago for the Phillies, where they remember they blew those 2 games at home. They came home up 3-2 in that series, and they lost both of them at home.
Yeah, I saw they're 1-5 in the bank, I think, in their last 6 in the postseason. And
Red October has been so good to them, but lately in the postseason, their bullpen has not been good at home. They blew, obviously, the game one. Strahm blew that game. They had a 3-run lead immediately with that Realmuto, and they blew game one primarily because of the bullpen. We talked about how good the bullpen has been as far as the back end. Johan Duran, the Phillies have guys in the bullpen, but their bullpen has not been good. It was not good in that Diamondback series where they blew it a couple years ago. It was not even good last year against the Mets, where they blew a couple games late after Wheeler was incredible. The Mets kind of built their comes back late. The Phillies bullpen the last few years in the postseason has kind of been the crippling thing. And obviously you touched on it too. The top of the order has to be better. You can't get an 0 for 21 from Schwarber at this time of the year. Harper, same thing. He's got to get back to the Bryce Harper he was against the Braves a couple years ago, and just that entire playoff run, really, the last 2022 and 2023. So yeah, you got to get back to that. And obviously the middle of the order right now is the only guys for the Phillies that are even doing anything. You have to get more production out of those guys if you want to beat the Dodgers. It's a tough task, but it looks like the Dodgers are probably going to punch their ticket to the National League Championship Series once again. Just an unbelievable team. They're inevitable. They really are inevitable, and you got to give credit to Dave Roberts and company. So right now, as far as it looks right now, we could look ahead, I guess, not really, but as far as every team is still in it, the 8 teams are still in it. There's 3 teams facing elimination tonight, or not tonight. I guess the Yankees facing
the next game tonight.
Yeah. The next, exactly. Cubs, Phillies, and Yankees all have to win their next game or it's over. So what do you think the Final Four will look like, and who are your World Series picks right now if you had to go right now, crystal ball?
Yeah, I mean it's hard to pick against the Dodgers and the Brewers, obviously, and those two. I think those are pretty comfortable. I mean, the way the Brewers are playing, I can't just give the Dodgers the ticket right in there, but I am going to stick with my gut. Obviously, I think the Dodgers do make it out of the NL right now. The AL, it kind of remains to be wide open, like we talked about.
Yeah.
And frankly, to be honest, right now, I don't really feel comfortable with the Mariners. I thought they played fine, but dropping that game at home, and then they beat Skubal again, which is like kind of the inverse. So I don't even know. But if I had to pick right now, I think I might even go Jays with that home field advantage. It's just so hard to pick. And I think it's fair. The way they look against the Yankees, they're just dominant. That offense just hits and hits and hits and hits, and there's no stopping it. So I think if I had to guess, Jays, Dodgers. But I mean, I don't love it. Obviously, I think the Dodgers I feel pretty good about. But like you said, the AL feels wide open.
It's wide open.
But yeah, what do you think? Because it's tough.
I think the Dodgers are going to get to the World Series. I said if the Dodgers beat the Phillies, I think, and now credit to Milwaukee, they're going to have home field in that, and if they get past the Cubs, they're going to have home field in the NLCS. It's tough for me to pick against the Dodgers with how good they've been playing. What bullpen? We can get Glass now out of here and just get him to. I mean, it's unfair, and I love the Brewers. And by the way, the Brewers are 6-0 this year against the Dodgers, so they've had their number. Yeah. But ultimately, I am going to go. I think it's a 7-game series. I really do think the Dodgers they present some problems. I mean, that Mizrowski, the Dodgers
Game 7 will be in Milwaukee.
For sure. Yeah, 100%. But I still like the Dodgers there. The AL is completely wide open. You could pick any of the 4 teams. I wouldn't blame you. I think the Jays, because we have home field advantage, we would, if we get to the ALCS, we have a good chance. Although I don't love the 2-3-2 format as far as the number 1 seed goes.
Yeah.
Because you get 3 straight games on the road. And it's like that could be where you lose the series. That being said, I think if Bo Bichette's healthy by then, obviously you hope to get Scherzer and Bassett back on the roster. Because right now you're kind of doing a bulk. You can't really afford a bullpen game in that series. You're going to need to have guys like a Bassett who's been great in the postseason before, like a Scherzer. Maybe Barrios would be healthy by then, but probably not. So you're going to need those guys to be back. You can't really, and I love Trey Savage. He is a savage. But if you have to rely on a rookie every 4 days or every 5 days to win you a postseason game, it's going to be tough sledding. Eventually, you're probably going to get roughed up maybe once by one of these great teams that have great lineups. So ultimately, the AL is wide open. If the Tigers bats wake up, that's going to be a big problem as well. If the Mariners, how magical they are, they have MVPs in the lineup as well. So I think it's going to be Jays Mariners. I'm sticking with Jays Mariners because right now I've gotten no.
Trust your gut. They both
I'm going to trust my gut. Yeah, trust my gut. Ultimately, I had Mariners over Jays in the thing, so I could just stick with that. So if the Mariners win tonight, I'll feel very good about them still making it to the next round. But yeah, it's wide open. I think it's going to be Dodgers, and if I had to guess right now, I'd say Mariners or Jays. So I mean, I had Mariners and Jays in the prediction, and I had Phillies. So the only revising I'm doing here is I think the Dodgers will. Instead of the Phillies, I do think the Dodgers. I think you're right about that. I think the Dodgers will ultimately get to the World Series again.
Sure.
I'd love to see the Brewers. I'd love to see the Cubs. I mean, I'd love to see all any of these teams. So it'd be nice, but I think the Dodgers are fun to watch too. I know everyone hates the Dodgers. I like watching the Dodgers personally. They play good baseball.
I mean, they hadn't been their best this year. I mean, what are they? 91 wins, not even
91 wins. 92
yeah.
wins.
So I mean, this is a team that is kind of peaking at the right time, and nobody really feels good for them because they are so talented. It kind of is just one of those things. But credit to them, and they made the right bullpen moves they have so far. So. Credit to the Dodgers, and I feel good about my pick, but it's baseball. Anything can happen. None of these series are over, including the Phillies-Dodgers series. So it's why we play the games.
Yeah, a long way to go for sure, but it's looking pretty good for the Dodgers right now. All right, that's it for part 1 of this episode of the podcast. Coming up Right after this, we're going to have another episode. It's a prolonged version of this podcast. We're talking about college football, crazy upset, Penn State. We're also talking about NFL, a couple crazy upsets in the NFL. Bills go down to the Patriots, Broncos upset the Eagles, Jags, Chiefs. So we're going to talk about that in part 2 of this podcast. But that's it for this episode. Be sure to be on the lookout for, obviously, the next version, which is talking about all college football from this past Saturday and the NFL.